It was a cool, early autumn morning in a quiet suburban neighborhood. The sun had barely risen, and the streets were still sleepy. David, a man in his early 30s, walked along the road, his mind lost in the mundane thoughts of his daily routine. He worked as a mechanic and lived a simple, solitary life. But as he rounded the corner near an old abandoned house, something unusual caught his eye. There, lying in a small alley between two crumbling buildings, was a cat. A beautiful tabby with fur that was matted and unkempt, her breathing shallow and ragged. David's heart skipped a beat when he noticed something even more troubling. Next to the cat were three tiny, helpless kittens, their eyes barely open and trembling in the cold. Without thinking, David rushed over, his heart heavy with concern. The cat's eyes flickered open as he approached, but she seemed too weak to even move. Her body was frail, covered in dirt, and it was clear that she was gravely ill. David crouched down beside her. "Hey there, little one," he murmured softly, his voice gentle. "What happened to you?" The cat barely lifted her head, but in the brief moment, David saw the fear and exhaustion in her eyes. He carefully placed his hand on her side, feeling how her body trembled under his touch. David knew the cat wouldn't survive much longer if left in the cold alley. Her ribs were visible beneath her fur, and her coat was infested with fleas. The kittens, so small and fragile, seemed to be nursing, but their mother was too weak to care for them properly. "Don't worry," David whispered. "I'm going to get you some help." He gently scooped the dying cat into his arms, careful not to disturb her too much. The kittens mewed pitifully, still nestled by their mother's side. With a sense of urgency, David grabbed the kittens one by one, tucking them into the folds of his jacket for warmth, before cradling the cat as best as he could. It wasn't easy. He had no experience with animals in distress, but his instincts told him he had to act fast. As he hurried back to his home, his thoughts raced. Where could I take them? What should I do? When David reached his modest house, he immediately made a makeshift bed in an old cardboard box, lining it with soft blankets. He placed the sick mother cat and her kittens gently inside, the little ones curling up to her side as if seeking comfort. David quickly realized the gravity of the situation. He needed help. The cat, whom he had already started calling Luna, was too weak to move, and her breathing had become shallow. The kittens were hungry and fragile, barely surviving on their own. He knew he needed professional help, so he rushed to the local veterinary clinic. When he arrived, the clinic was just opening, and the vet, Dr. Patel, greeted him with concern upon seeing the state of the cat and her kittens. "Bring them in quickly," Dr. Patel said, ushering David into the clinic. "Let's see what we can do." Dr. Patel's expertise and quick thinking helped stabilize Luna. She was diagnosed with severe malnutrition and dehydration, and her health was dire. However, with intensive care, she might have a chance of surviving. The kittens were also weak, but, with proper nourishment, they could thrive. David decided he would do everything in his power to save them. He made arrangements for Luna and her kittens to stay at the clinic while they were treated, promising to visit every day to check on them. Over the next few days, David visited the clinic each morning and evening. He spent time with Luna, talking to her in soft tones, letting her know she wasn't alone. With every passing day, Luna grew a little stronger, and so did her kittens. David watched as they began to open their eyes and explore their tiny world. Luna's health gradually improved under Dr. Patel's care. She had been given fluids, proper food, and medication to fight the infection that had been sapping her strength. As her energy returned, she began to purr softly whenever David was near, clearly trusting him more and more. David knew it wasn't just about saving their lives anymore. It was about giving them the love and attention they needed to thrive. Slowly, the bond between him and the little family grew stronger. Luna would nuzzle against him, her soft purrs filling the room. The kittens, playful and curious, would climb onto his lap, their tiny paws exploring his hands. Days turned into weeks, and Luna and her kittens became a part of David's life. Their playful antics brought joy into his once solitary existence. But one question loomed: what would he do when they were healthy again? He had always been someone who kept to himself, and the idea of having animals at home seemed like a lot of responsibility. But as the kittens grew, running around and tumbling over one another, and as Luna became more vibrant, he realized there was no other choice. These animals had become his family. One evening, as David watched Luna and her kittens play together, he made the decision. "You're all staying with me," he said with a smile. "You've made me feel alive again. You're my family now." As the weeks passed, Luna and her kittens fully recovered. They grew stronger every day, and David's house was no longer the quiet, solitary place it once was. It was filled with love and laughter, the sound of the kittens' meows and Luna's purring filling the air. David, once a man who lived a solitary life, now found joy in the company of these animals. Luna, the once dying cat, was now thriving, her fur glossy, her health restored. The kittens, full of energy, grew into strong, playful cats. David's bond with them grew deeper every day, and in return, Luna and her kittens gave him the unconditional love and companionship he had never known he needed. They taught him the value of kindness, patience, and the joy that comes from caring for others. The once fragile and helpless family now thrived in the warmth of David's home, a testament to the power of compassion and second chances. As the years passed, Luna and her kittens, now adults, became a part of David's daily life. The little family that had once been on the brink of death now filled his home with love, laughter, and joy. David often thought back to the day he found Luna and her kittens in the alley. He never imagined that such a chance encounter would change his life forever. They were no longer just survivors, they were his family, his companions, his best friends. And every time Luna curled up on his lap, or the kittens, now grown, climbed onto his shoulders, he knew that saving them had saved him, too. Months passed, and David's life continued to change in ways he hadn't expected. His connection with Luna and her kittens, now full-grown cats, was stronger than ever. They were more than just animals in his home, they were his companions, his support, and his reason for getting up every day. Luna, who had once been so frail and sickly, now walked with a graceful stride, her once matted fur shiny and soft. She had taken on a protective role for her kittens turned young adults, always keeping an eye on them. The kittens, now fully grown, were a lively bunch. The one he had named Shadow, a sleek black cat, was the most mischievous, always darting in and out of rooms and getting into trouble. The other two, Whiskers and Ginger, were quieter but just as loving. David's days were now filled with the laughter of cats chasing each other around the house, the soothing sound of purring, and the warmth of the little family he had helped save. His house, which had once been a place of solitude, was now a lively, bustling home. One day, as David sat on his couch, reading a book with Shadow curled up beside him and Luna lying at his feet, he reflected on how different his life had become. "If you had told me a year ago that I'd have 4 cats running around my house, I would have laughed," he said to Luna, who looked up at him with her soft, amber eyes. She responded with a contented purr, as if agreeing with him. "But now, I can't imagine life without all of you." As the seasons changed, David's relationship with the cats deepened. He began to realize just how much they had filled the emptiness in his life. Where once he had avoided relationships and shied away from emotional connections, he now found himself embracing the unconditional love these animals gave him every day. There were difficult days, of course, days when David found himself struggling with his own thoughts and the weight of his past. But Luna and the kittens always seemed to know when he needed them most. Luna, in particular, would nuzzle up to him during the quiet evenings when he felt alone in his thoughts. The kittens, too, would playfully jump onto his lap, providing moments of joy even on the hardest days. One evening, while David was cleaning up after dinner, Ginger, the soft orange tabby, jumped onto the kitchen counter and stared at him with wide, pleading eyes. David laughed as he gently scooped her up. "You think I'll give you some of my food, huh? Not a chance." But as he held her in his arms, he realized that the cats had become more than just animals living in his home. They had become his family, his source of comfort and strength. As Luna and her kittens grew older, David's life continued to expand beyond his home. Word about his rescue of Luna and her kittens spread through the neighborhood, and soon, more people began reaching out to him with their own stories of stray cats and animals in need. David had always been a quiet man, content to live in the background of his community, but now, he found himself becoming a bit of a local hero. People brought injured animals to him, knowing he had a big heart and a willingness to help. Some asked for advice on how to care for stray animals, while others simply wanted to share their own stories of rescue and compassion. David didn't mind at all. he found a new sense of purpose in helping others. And as the cats watched him take on more responsibility, he knew they were his silent supporters, giving him the courage to step out of his comfort zone. He started volunteering at the local animal shelter, using his experiences with Luna and her kittens to teach others about animal care. His once solitary life had blossomed into something full of connection and purpose. The shy, quiet man who had once lived without companionship now had a family, both human and animal, that he could count on. It wasn't just the people in the community who benefited from David's newfound role. Luna and her kittens, too, had become symbols of hope. People who heard their story were inspired to adopt rescue animals, or to foster them temporarily until they could find permanent homes. As the years went by, Luna became known as the cat who saved David. People would often stop by his house just to meet her, the beautiful tabby who had been found dying in an alley and was now a picture of health and vitality. They marveled at her strength and resilience, and David would smile and tell them how far they had come together. One day, as David sat in his garden with Luna curled up in his lap and the kittens playing nearby, a neighbor stopped by to say hello. "David," she said, "I've been thinking about adopting a cat. Your story with Luna and her kittens has really touched me." David smiled warmly and offered her advice, but what struck him most was how much the bond he shared with Luna and her kittens had inspired others. It wasn't just the fact that he had saved them, it was the love, care, and attention that had created a new life for all of them. In that moment, David realized that his act of kindness had rippled out into the world, touching lives in ways he couldn't have imagined. Luna, Shadow, Ginger, and Whiskers weren't just cats. They were symbols of hope, resilience, and the power of love to heal wounds, both animal and human. As the years passed, the family David had helped create continued to grow stronger. Luna's health remained stable, and her kittens, now full-grown cats, continued to bring joy and companionship into his life. Shadow had grown into a sleek, playful cat, always getting into mischief but never too far from David's side. Whiskers was the gentle one, often curling up beside him during the quiet evenings. Ginger, with her soft purring and affectionate nature, became David's constant companion, following him around the house and nuzzling against him whenever she could. David had come to realize that his life had been saved just as much as Luna's and her kittens. They had healed him in ways that were hard to put into words. The lonely man who once kept to himself was now surrounded by a family, one that didn't just love him unconditionally but gave him a reason to live each day with a full heart. Luna, now older but still as graceful and loving as ever, was by his side through it all. David knew that, no matter what the future held, this little family of his, one born from tragedy but built on love, would always be with him. As he watched the sun set one evening, with Luna purring contentedly in his lap and the kittens turned cats playing in the garden, he felt a deep sense of peace. He had saved them, but in the process, they had saved him too. And in that moment, David knew that he would never be alone again. Years passed, and as time continued its steady march, David's home remained full of love. Luna, Shadow, Ginger, and Whiskers had all lived long, happy lives by his side. When the inevitable day came that Luna, now elderly, passed away, David was heartbroken. But he took solace in knowing that he had given her the best life possible, one filled with love, warmth, and care. The legacy of Luna's journey from a dying stray to a cherished member of a family inspired David to continue helping animals in need, always remembering the lesson she had taught him, that love, no matter how small or how broken, could heal even the deepest wounds. David's life, once empty and solitary, was now overflowing with love and purpose. And every time a new cat was rescued, David remembered the day Luna had walked into his life and how everything had changed for the better. This continuation adds depth to David's relationship with the animals, his growing role in the community, and the lasting impact Luna and her kittens had on him and others. It emphasizes themes of redemption, compassion, and the healing power of love. The story can continue to be expanded with more reflections on the bond between David and the cats, the community's support, and more individual experiences with other animals.